All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Echo's webinar on what's new in Salesforce Summer 19. Thank you very much for spending time with us this morning or afternoon, wherever you are, to go over some of our favorite new features from the summer release. My name is Karen Yu. I am Director of Sales and Marketing here at Echo, and I will be leading us in this webinar today. Echo Technology Solutions is a full-service IT consulting firm, and one of the services that we provide is Salesforce consulting, and that includes implementations, integrations, and ongoing admin support. So here's a rough agenda of what I will be covering in the next half hour or so. Note that all of the features that we'll be going over will be in the Lightning experience. This is because all of the releases that Salesforce does from now on will only be in Lightning, and I believe that's been the case for some time now. If you're still using Classic, don't worry at all. This will be good exposure for you as you think about transitioning your organization and maybe seeing what's new and what's possible with Lightning experience. And at the end, we'll be going over some Lightning tools and talking a little bit more about the auto transition in October. So we'll go over some general features, do a little demo, Community Cloud, analytics, so reports and dashboards, do a little demo there too as well, Pardot, and then Lightning, as I said. So some housekeeping, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared afterwards along with the slides that are here today. There's going to be some links that I've peppered in the presentation, so I want to make sure that you can access those. If you have any questions during the webinar, please post it using the chat, which you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom window. It should look something like the Zoom screenshot that you see on the bottom here. And so I'll do my best to answer those either throughout the webinar or during the Q&A at the end. And we do have some of our Salesforce consultants on the line as well who can potentially help me out with that. All right, so let's get into it. The first thing that we'll be talking about are general features that are new for Summer 19. So the first thing is probably the most fun of the bunch, which is the ability to celebrate milestones with confetti. This can be added anywhere that path is available, which is the green bar you see in the screenshot here to guide users along multiple steps in a process. For example, working an opportunity or a case to close. When your users update the record to a certain step in the path, you can enable virtual confetti to celebrate your user's accomplishment. You can even set how frequently the confetti is shown, rarely or all the time, depending on how often that step is reached to make it more special. This is great for you and your team to celebrate the big wins and maybe even the small wins as well, to take a moment and really pat yourself on the back while you're working in Salesforce. So to set this up, you'll need to enable path from setup on whichever object you want. In this case, it's on opportunities, and then pick at what stage you want the confetti to show. And we'll see this in a little bit in the demo. All right, so the next topic is about help articles. And if you're like me, then when you run into an issue or have a question about Salesforce, then Google is really your best friend. And when I look something up, oftentimes the most helpful article is actually the one from Salesforce itself. So from the help menu in Salesforce, which is the question mark on the top right of your screen, users can now search Salesforce's own documentation without having to open another tab. And I find this particularly useful because most of the time there are always like step-by-step instructions that I need to follow to enable something or to set something up. And it's nice to see those instructions next to what I'm doing in Salesforce without having to toggle back and forth between two different screens or different tabs. And next up, for you security conscious folks, which all of you should definitely fall into this category given the critical business data that lives in your Salesforce databases, Salesforce now allows you to require more complex passwords from your users that must include 3 of the following: numbers, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, and special characters. You can see that setting in the screenshot here, which is easily accessible from the password policy section of the setup menu. And while you're updating that setting, you might as well revisit your other password policies as well, which you can see on the screen. And then the last feature I want to go over in this section isn't really a general feature, but it didn't fall into my other category, so I figured I would put it here. We all know and love Trailhead, Salesforce's gamified learning tool. Shout out to any of you who have reached Ranger status, which is the top rank. I'm currently at the Expeditioner status, which is super close, but yet so far away, but one day I'll get there. Anyway, Salesforce has been teasing My Trailhead for some time now as a way for organizations to train their own staff with custom content and branding. And you can see some examples of that on the screen here. And so My Trailhead is now available as of March of this year. And you can consider My Trailhead for new employee onboarding or ongoing enablement. You know, if you imagine being a new employee and coming into your first day of work and logging into My Trailhead to learn more about your company and your role and what the company culture is all about, I personally think that would be pretty cool, but I also love Trailhead. So if you're an admin in the middle of a major development release for your staff, you could use My Trailhead to orient and train your staff to the new process that you've built out for them. User adoption and knowledge sharing is always difficult, especially when the technology changes so frequently. So My Trailhead can be a great way to address this, and you'd be able to track your staff's progress to see who hasn't taken the training and might need some extra help from you. Should come as no surprise that, of course, My Trailhead is a paid license add-on. Salesforce's website lists these at $25 per user per month. I'm not sure if there's a nonprofit discount or not, so if you are interested in receiving more pricing details, definitely contact your account executive. I unfortunately don't have a My Trailhead license, so I can't show you that in action today. But we'll go over some other exciting things. And right now, My Trailhead is only available for internal Salesforce users. So in other words, your staff. And what I'm personally hoping comes out next with My Trailhead is making this available on communities for external users. I think that would be a really interesting use case for Salesforce to go down that path. Okay, so we're just at the point where I'm going to do the first demo of the webinar, and we'll look at the first 3 features that we just went over. And so I'm going to hop out of my PowerPoint and pop into Salesforce, and I'm in a dev org right now. So there's very little customization here. I've just turned on a couple of features for you. So first of all, we are on an opportunity. I want to show you that confetti feature. And so I've set it up so that confetti will show and surprise me when I close the opportunity as one, or when you close a major deal, you receive a major donation. Any of those would apply to this use case. And so I'm just going to mark this stage as complete. Select it as closed one and save it. And you can see confetti has now completely surprised me. I'm giving myself a pat on the back, showing myself a lot of love. And I think this is just a really fun feature for your users and really ups the experience that Salesforce is providing you and making it a little bit more fun. In order to set this up, all you do is go to your setup menu and you'll search for path here. Go to path settings. And once this loads, you'll see that I have this path set up right here. And so if you wanted to create a new path, you would have to enable path first. But all I did here, if I go to edit this, you'll see it gives me to a little wizard. I've set it on the opportunity object on the master record type, and I've chosen the pick list stage as the one that controls that's specific to the path. So the green bar at the top is showing the different stages of an opportunity. And then where you set up confetti is actually on the last step. So here you can set text and content to really guide your users through each step of the path. I haven't done that here. And then here is where you can celebrate the success with confetti. You can see I've set it on closed won, and I have it on to always display the confetti at any time that pick list is edited to that field. And then once you're there, you'll just activate it and click finish, and then you'll be good to go. So the other thing I want to show you is this help. So if I were here, I'm going to go to my help and training menu, the question mark at the top right, and under more resources, you'll see search documentation. And let's say I wanted to search documentation for path. So I can do that here. I can, guide users, set up a path. And here I can scroll in my Salesforce and look at the different instructions. And I can open it in a new tab, or I can actually pop it down here so that as I navigate in Salesforce, this window will always be there to guide me, and I can refer back to it. And then you can minimize it as well. So it's always available. I think that's really convenient for Salesforce to provide. And then if I were to go back to the settings menu, to set up that password, the more complex password, you'll just go to password policies, and it's right here. So you'll see the new option at the bottom here. So I'll do that and then save it. And that's literally all you do. So that is the first demo, and I will pop back to my slides now. And present. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about one of Echo's favorite Salesforce products, Community Cloud, which is a great way to engage with your customers and supporters in a unique way by giving them access to your Salesforce data through an external portal. There's so many different use cases for this product, and Salesforce has made Community Cloud even more powerful with the Lightning Community Builder, which comes with a library of pre-built components that you can drag and drop onto your community pages without the need for code. So the first thing I want to mention here, so in addition to the components, those pre-built components, Salesforce provides pre-built templates as well for some of those different use cases, such as a customer portal, a partner portal, or a customer service template. So with the summer release, users can now select any pre-built page from any template, no matter which template you started with when you first created your community. So you can mix and match pages to your heart's desire from different templates to best suit the needs of your portal users. And the next thing I want to talk about is the mobile publisher. So this was actually released in the spring of this year, but it's not something I see talked about a lot. So I wanted to talk about it here. So for a while now, Salesforce has made it easy to create mobile apps for your users. And in the spring release, Salesforce came out with Mobile Publisher specifically for communities to make it easy to deploy your community as a native iOS and Android app without any code. And so considering the investment in development and maintenance needed to build custom mobile apps, this is a great option to consider if you're thinking about creating an engaging mobile experience using communities. And as part of Summer 19 release, Salesforce released the enhancement to create specific mobile page layouts and give you the ability to hide certain components that you might just typically show on your desktop experience. And that's so that your mobile experience, maybe it won't feel as clunky because there are just so many different components to show. And you also want to make sure the performance of your mobile app is as fast as possible. So mobile publisher, another great thing to consider if you're really considering the mobile experience for your external users. So next, we'll move on to what's new with reports and dashboards in Salesforce. First off, historical trend reports and conditional formatting are now generally available in Lightning. So prior to this, users had to switch back to Classic experience in order to access these features, and now you don't have to. So you can use the Lightning Report Builder and access these features in Lightning now, which is awesome. These are two really great ways to see how your business metrics are changing over time and highlight some more important records and call attention to them. So for example, you might want to see how your opportunity or donation pipeline is changing week to week or month to month, and historical trend reports let you do just that by allowing you to choose a parameter to track. And you can see in the screenshot here, we're tracking the amount as well as the close date. And then it can show you how it's changed. And you can see with the plus minus here. And then on the left-hand screenshot, you can see an example of conditional highlighting, which allows you to highlight any summarized numerical data on reports based on whatever criteria you set. So for example, if you want to highlight and call attention to the biggest accounts in your opportunity pipeline, you can do that. And this is especially useful in matrix reports where it can be hard to identify what needs the most attention. So this is something I haven't played with too much, but I'm excited to kind of dive deeper and use it even on Echo's own reports to see how things might be changing. Okay, and so a small but impactful feature in the summer release is the ability to search for records within a report itself. You can think about if you have a report with a large number of records on it, it's nice to be able to quickly search within the report itself rather than scrolling through. And so you can see an example of that in the screenshot here. There's only 3 records, so obviously I didn't need to search for it, but just as an example, you can see that the magnifying glass on the top, and I've inputted SAQ for SAQ test company, and you can see that it immediately highlighted the record, similar to if you were to use, Control F. Have you ever run a report and wish you could quickly use a formula to analyze the data? Instead of asking your admin to create a formula field as a one-off or export the report to Excel to do the calculation, Salesforce has released a beta feature for row-level formulas, which we'll see in a bit. You'll need to enable this feature in setup before you can see this feature, especially because it is beta. But this is really cool, and actually, let's just dive into it right now. So back to Salesforce. So first, let's go over historical trend reports, and I have one set up right here. I'll just zoom in a little bit to 100. And so you can see here, this is a list of sample opportunities at different stages with different close dates and amounts. And you can see here, I'm comparing the amount now. So this is the amount as it is right now versus the amount yesterday. And so yesterday I had a couple of opportunities, and this morning I changed them. And so you can see exactly what that amount was yesterday, what it is today, and what the change is. So in this case, I decreased the amount by $50,000. And in this case, it's up 10,000, which is showing the difference between red and green. I'm also comparing close dates. And so it might be a little bit hard to see, but these 2 records right here are in green. And you can see that I changed them because before they were set to April or May, and just this morning I pushed them out to June. And so this is a really great way to call attention to those changes that you're making, and depending on how or volatile your pipeline might be, or whatever report you're running, you might want to look at this kind of historical trend report on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, whatever it might be. And to set this up, I'm going to go into Edit. And you'll see here in my outline, I have amount, and then I have amount historical. And so those are the fields that are showing in the report that I'm comparing. And then because you'll see that this is a specific report type, opportunities with historical trending. And so once you enable historical trend reports, which you can do from setup, you'll see this new report type pop up on those different objects that you've enabled it for. And then you'll have the ability for, in your columns, to search historical, and you can see all of the historical fields there. So you can see I haven't added these two to my report. In order to set the time differential, so in this case, I'm comparing yesterday to today. You can see on the top here, I have snapshot dates, and it's comparing yesterday. But if I wanted to compare, you know, a month ago or 2 weeks ago, there are different options for me that I can choose. And you can actually have, I think, a total of 4 snapshot date filters on the report. So I could compare all at once, today, yesterday, you know, a week ago or a month ago, all at the same time. So that's really, really cool. Just note that when you do enable historical trending, you're only able to see those snapshots from the time that you enable it moving forward. So it won't kind of backfill any of those changes. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so then let's move on to conditional highlighting. So I'm going to move to a different report that I have set up. And here I don't have highlighting set up, so we'll do that together. And note that you have to be in a summary or a matrix report format. And you'll see here that there's a conditional formatting button on the bottom left. It's not super obvious at first, so just know that it's there, but this will only show up when you have a summarized numerical field. So in this case, I'm summarizing the amount, and you can see that I have sum selected. And so it's only when I have one or all of these options selected that this shows up here. So keep that in mind. If you can't find it, that's why. I was having trouble with that yesterday, and yeah, it doesn't show up automatically. So from here, I can click, since my report meets all of that criteria, I can click conditional formatting rules, add a new rule. I want to apply to some of the amount, and maybe I'll do the range as below 50,000, up to 150,000, and over 150,000. And then I can choose what the different color keys are, but I'll just leave those as the default. And once I click done and apply, you can see now that even in my preview, the conditional formatting is showing. And if I run the report, you can see the total and the different formatting. So then I'm going to use the same report and talk about the row level formulas. So again, you have to enable this from setup. I've already done that. And so in my outline, if you look at the column section in the drop down here, there's this new option for adding row level formulas beta. So don't forget, this is a beta feature. And so immediately I'm taken to this little pop-up, and I can select and set up my first row level formula. So I want to do this on, let's say I want to, in this use case, I want to know how many days it's been since the last activity for these opportunities, because if I'm not touching base with them, then maybe it's going stagnant. So I just want to make sure that I'm keeping up on top of all of the opportunities in my pipeline that are assigned to me. So I'm going to name my new column days since last activity. And since it's days, I don't really need decimal points. And I'm going to reduce this so that I can actually see my formula box. And my formula is going to be today. And I'm going to insert that function minus, and I'm going to go back to my fields, and I'm going to look up last activity and insert that. I'll validate it to make sure it's valid, which it is, and apply. And now you can see it immediately pops up in my report and calculates that field for me. So I can see, if I save and run this, here I can quickly see, how many days it's been since the last activity on each of these opportunities, and I might direct my attention to opportunities that haven't had a lot of activity recently. Okay, so that's that demo, and we'll go back to my slides. Oops. See, we have a question here. Can you use conditional formatting on row level formulas? That's an excellent question, Harun. Thank you for asking. I don't think you can. Conditional formatting is only available on the summary level. And I think, hold on just a second. Okay, this is showing as blank, but I must have added a new slide anyway. Okay, so let's talk about Pardot. So we use Salesforce here at Echo, but we also just implemented Pardot internally late last year as our automated marketing tool. We haven't been able to take advantage of all of the features just yet, but we're loving what it can do so far and how user-friendly it is from both kind of an end user perspective as well as an admin perspective. So the feature I want to go over today as part of the summer release is how Salesforce has made it easier to view marketing metrics from Pardot directly in Salesforce. So of course, the level of integration between Salesforce and Pardot is robust, with many options for what syncs and how it does that. And for organizations who have both Salesforce and Pardot, it might be nice to see engagement metrics in either or, depending on what kind of user you are. But for example, I manage both sales and marketing here at Echo, but I don't generally log into Pardot because my colleague Vashti is the one who sets up and runs all of those communications and sets up all of the social media and all of that through Pardot. However, I still want to know how a marketing asset might be doing. And instead of asking my colleague for that information or having to log into Pardot and kind of figure out where I need to go, it would be nice if I could just see this directly in Salesforce, since that's mostly where I live and where my day-to-day work is being done. So in the summer release, Salesforce lets you view engagement metrics on individual marketing assets, which is the bottom right screenshot here, to see how well they're performing. And so on this aggregate level, you can see exactly all of the activities that are happening from this asset. And you can see there's a summary of like total views and unique views, and I'm sure you can customize kind of what metrics you want to show there. Additionally, if you're using campaigns in Salesforce, you can enable engagement history dashboards and embed those analytics directly on the campaign record in Salesforce, which is the left screenshot. And so that's really exciting because, again, just streamlining that user experience from Salesforce and allowing you to view everything that you need from one place, depending on what kind of user you are. Okay, so we're just about at the end of my content here. And so the next thing we'll talk about is Lightning transition and tools. If you are still using Salesforce Classic, I hope that what we've gone over so far gives you a small taste of what's available in Lightning and what's to come. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So if you haven't yet transitioned, this is a reminder, friendly one, that Salesforce will begin auto-transitioning organizations to Lightning starting October 12, 2019 with the Winter 20 release. There's been some confusion around what that actually means. And so I think Salesforce has done a really great job of kind of spelling that out. And so I've linked to a few different resources here on this page. So the first thing to note is that access to Salesforce Classic is not going away, and users will still be able to toggle back and forth between Lightning and Classic experience. In fact, you can even opt out, and I say that in quotes, of the auto update by making sure all of your users are on custom profiles without the Lightning experience user permission. And so there's more details on that in the blog post that Salesforce just recently released that's linked to here on this page. But as I said before, all of Salesforce's future releases will be in Lightning only. So it's really only a matter of time before Classic becomes really obsolete. And so to ensure you can take advantage of the new releases and keep up with Salesforce's innovation, it's better to transition to Lightning sooner rather than later, and use this lead time to get prepared to do that. So I'll just quickly show you the Lightning Transition Assistant and also the updated Lightning Configuration Converter. So I'm in Lightning right now, but I'm actually going to switch myself to Classic just so you can see. And that's literally how you toggle between the two. And so I'm going to go to Setup, and you'll see here, because I'm in Classic, Salesforce is telling me that everything is better in Lightning, but I already know that. So I'm going to go here to the Lightning Experience Transition Assistant and click Get Started. And this is going to be a really helpful resource for all of you who are still in Classic. So I encourage all of you to go through each of these and run your Lightning readiness report, which is in step 2 here. You can check your readiness, and Salesforce will analyze your organization, your Salesforce instance, and call out some of the major things that may or may not need to be addressed as you transition to Lightning. And so there are 6 really common things that we see all organizations need to do. And Echo has a blog post around, about that on our website right now. So I've linked to that in the slides as well if you'd like to take a look. And depending on how customized your organization is, you might need to do some things and not others. And also keep in mind that if the Lightning Readiness Report is saying you need to do something, to take a look at that and really evaluate if that feature is something you're using or your users are using. Because if it's saying that you need to update this, like let's say it's saying you need to update this Visualforce page. If that Visualforce page, no one's accessing it, then you likely don't need to address it. So keep that in mind, because you know your organization best and you know what features are being used or not. So highly recommend this. The other thing I want to call out that I've linked to here is the Lightning Configuration Converter. And so I already have this open. You're going to go to this URL, and it's going to have you log into Salesforce. And I'm just going to log into it just logged me into my dev org. And so this really calls out JavaScript buttons, actions and buttons, and Visualforce pages. You'll see the 2 here are in beta mode, but this is a really more intuitive way to analyze your organization and see what actions you might need to take. And it also gives you some ability to take those actions from this converter as well. And so especially if you're using a lot of Visualforce pages, I could scan my org for Visualforce pages and see what Salesforce's recommendations are for each of those, and potentially take action depending on what the recommendation is. And so that is all I have. And so right now, I've answered some questions. And if there are more, happy to answer them now, or if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out at a later time. But I figured we have some time here. So if there are any questions, let's see. For how long will we be able to toggle between the two? Thanks, Tanya, for your question. I'm not sure. Let me actually see if Salesforce says. And so the blog post I mentioned that Salesforce just came out with, I think like 10 days ago, really spells out what exactly is going to happen and how you can opt out if you want to. In terms of how long you'll be able to toggle between the two, I don't think that they spell that out. And I think that's because a lot of people are still on Classic, so not sure. So yes, there are definitely more new features that I didn't cover. So my team and I went through all of the release notes and kind of combed through and pulled out features that we really liked and would be useful, would be most useful. But if you're interested, obviously you can go to the release notes and look at those. If you're interested in specific products that Salesforce has, you can easily search and see what's new in the summer release. And Felice, she says that Salesforce will probably allow you to be able to toggle between Salesforce and Classic until all the features in Classic that are not currently in Lightning yet are moved over. And I think that's a very smart answer, Felice, and I agree with you. Are there any other questions? And I think in order to be able to tell which features are in Classic versus Lightning, there is a help article, I think, actually, in Salesforce's documentation. So you can kind of follow that thread and see what things are being added and what things still need to be added to the Lightning experience. Rachel asks, can I opt to block my users from switching back to Classic if I have a lot of Lightning features I want them to be using? Rachel, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I was just looking up on this because I know a lot of people, once they switch to Lightning, they build a lot of customizations that are generally critical for their users. And sometimes people are hesitant to use Lightning and switch back to Classic and then are missing stuff. There is a permission that you can set that locks people into Classic that you can add via permission set or to a particular profile.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? We're almost at time. You know, I intended this to be about a 45 minutes session, but I hope that you all got something out of this and are excited about what's to come next with the summer 19 release and the winter release. So again, this is being recorded and we'll share out the recording as well as the slides to all of you. But I guess we'll wrap up here if there aren't any more questions. Let's see, Haroon, how many row formulas can you have on a single report? I believe you can only have one. And if we look at this here, let me close out of this. So this is my report where I created that row level formula. If I go back to edit, the reason why I think you can only have one is because when I click this, add row level formula is now grayed out. And actually you can see maximum of one row level formula reached. So hopefully when it's not beta anymore, Salesforce will increase that limit, but right now you can only have one. All right, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to learn more about Salesforce Summer 19 with me. If you'd like to dive deeper into any of the features you saw today, reach out to me or your project team. And if you have any suggestions for technology topics you'd like to see us cover in future webinars, we do about one every other month, please let me know. Myself and my team are the ones who make them happen. So my email is listed here at the bottom. Please reach out anytime. Thank you again for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.